This is Future Talk.
Future Talk.
Future Talk with Omnia Al-Saleh and Hani Balkis.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. I hope you're all having a blessed afternoon. It is one day until the weekend, and I'm sure everyone is excited to get to rest and relax this weekend. You're listening to Future Talk right here on Pulse 95. This is the one and only place where we bring you the latest in robotics, artificial intelligence, gadgets, and applications. All that you need to know about what's happening in the tech world, in the UAE, and around the world is being brought to you right here on Pulse 95. Lots and lots is happening in the tech world today. Facebook is making headlines because they are currently working on an artificial intelligence that can actually predict the likelihood of someone having their COVID-19 symptoms becoming worse. How efficient is this AI? We're going to be giving you all those details in just a few moments. But up in space, lots is happening as well because Worsen is actually working on a Virgin Orbit launch, and a lot of people have been astonished by this launch because it is a rocket that is coming right out of the wing of a plane. How did that work out? Now, that's something I'm excited to talk to you about. Coming up on the show as well, right here in the UAE, one student has actually created a wearable exoskeleton that is providing relief to all arthritis patients. This exoskeleton may just change the game for any person with arthritis, and we're going to tell you exactly how that will be happening. But in the world of gadgets, lots is happening as well because Apple is planning to launch 2 Macbook Pro Laptops with a brand new design, a magnetic charger, and this is all according to the analysts that have been following up on Apple's latest launches. In the world of cars, there's a lot happening as well because Mercedes has actually revealed a giant 56-inch AI-enabled hyperscreen for its upcoming electric cars. Now, that is a car I'm sure everyone wants to go ahead and grab. Lots and lots is in store right here on the show, so make sure you keep Pulse 95 locked, and we'll be right back.
Daily digital news. Bits and bytes connect our world.
Your quick roundup of everything that is happening in the tech world in the UAE and around the world. Today, Facebook is making headlines, not in any privacy issues, but rather with a very interesting invention that they're currently working on. Facebook is developing an artificial intelligence that can predict the likelihood of a person's COVID-19 symptoms to go ahead and worsen. Artificial intelligence researchers at Facebook claim that this machine is actually very accurate. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, what's the basis behind all of this? How can an AI find out if someone's symptoms are going to worsen? It's not like the AI has a crystal globe that they're looking into the future through. But the reality behind it all is it lies in the chest x-rays that many doctors and nurse practitioners go ahead and collect for COVID-19 patients. Now, these x-rays can help the AI determine if someone's need for oxygen will increase and if someone's lungs are deteriorating. Now, Facebook says that the software could actually help doctors avoid sending any at-risk patients home too early, which is an issue that we've been finding in a lot of countries around the world. They send patients too early back home thinking that they're doing just fine, only to find out not even a few days later, sometimes it's a few hours later, that they need hospitalization once again. This is also helping a lot of hospitals monitor their oxygen demand because at the end of the day, AI can definitely predict what's going to happen based on the trends and based on the patterns of data that we go ahead and provide it with. Now, Facebook has been working with academics at NYU University, and they've been working alongside the Department of Radiology on the research. They are saying that the software could potentially help doctors avoid sending any patients back home too early, but also planning the hospital's oxygen demands in a very efficient way. Now, the 10 researchers that are involved in the study are divided into different categories. We have 5 researchers from Facebook, 5 researchers from NYU School of Medicine, and they have actually been developing 3 machine learning models in total. The reason behind the having multiple machines and not just one is because they're trying to study every angle in a different way, trying to see which one works best. One machine tries to predict the patient deterioration based on a single chest x-ray. So you give it one chest x-ray and it will go ahead and predict whether or not their case is deteriorating or not. Another machine does the same. However, it depends on a sequence of x-rays. The third machine uses a single x-ray to predict how much oxygen a person might need. Now, the model that they're basing their predictions on can actually predict up to 4 days in advance if a patient may need more intensive care solutions. So we're looking at 96 hours worth of saving this person's life and generally outperforming predictions by human experts. Now, they've definitely been able to show that the use of this AI algorithm, a bunch of, chest x-rays and human personnel helping out with those chest x-rays can predict the need for the escalation of care in patients with COVID-19. We've definitely seen a lot of researchers depend heavily on AI during the COVID-19 pandemic. Some people have only actually found out about AI ever since COVID-19 became a part of our lives. But this is all to show that sometimes we do need pandemics, we do need disasters to accelerate tech. And this acceleration shows us what works and what doesn't when it comes to involving tech in healthcare or any other part of our lives. But moving away from planet Earth and going all the way to the sky and space, Branson's Virgin Orbit has actually launched a rocket from the wing of a plane. This is by far the most unique way of launching rockets, and it's all because of Richard Branson, who actually owns Virgin's Orbit project that was able to successfully fly the rocket into space from the wing of a 747 plane, which is basically paving the way for a new method of launching low-cost satellites. Now, this is not the company's first attempt. They did fail a test, and this was actually their second attempt ever since they first tried it out back in May, and it did not work out. However, Launcher 1, which is the name of the orbit, has been launched, and everyone on the team who is not in the mission is actually going absolutely ecstatic about how amazing it was looking at it launch into outer space. The plane took off from an air and spaceport in the desert north of Los Angeles, and they launched the rocket over the Pacific Ocean. And, looking at it, Richard Branson has definitely come a very long way. He founded the Virgin Orbit company back in 2012. We all know the British billionaire Richard Branson, and he has been able to offer a very quick and flexible service for operators of small satellites that weigh between 300 and 500 kilograms. And this is definitely a booming market that we've been seeing all around the world, but more specifically right here in the UAE. A lot of satellites have actually been manufactured by students in the universities of Sharjah. We've seen a lot of them actually launch into outer space, and the reason why these satellites tend to be smaller and cheaper is because they are basically opening the horizon for many students to apply what they're learning in school, but also because this way you can send so many of them without necessarily risking losing a very expensive satellite. Now, once this satellite actually reaches the required altitude, the plane would go ahead and release the rocket, whose own engine fires up to push it into Earth's orbit and place its payload in space. There are so many accomplishments happening in space and right here on Earth, and we're definitely excited to keep on sharing those tech news with you. Coming up on the show, we're talking about an invention that has taken place right here in the UAE, because one student was able to create a wearable exoskeleton that has been providing a lot of relief for arthritis patients. Keep Pulse 95 locked. We'll be right back.
Check this out. Check this out. Pulse 95.
The best type of inventions are those that can provide a solution and relief to those who need it. And this is exactly what we're talking about today, because a student right here in the UAE created a wearable exoskeleton that has been providing a lot of relief for all arthritis patients. Now, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen a lot of inventions being put out on the market, whether it was, individuals who wanted to invent something to help out. We've seen inventions of masks. We've seen inventions of different tools that were helping those who needed oxygen. And Emirati practitioners right here in the UAE have definitely been handling the COVID-19 pandemic in a very efficient way because of all of those tools and gadgets. But young minds are also pushing the envelope to make the UAE a breeding ground for all creative solutions. A teenager named Sara Naeem Fakhri has actually built a wearable exosuit and smart shoes that help arthritis patients move around without being held back by the pain in their joints. For those of you who don't know about arthritis, it's definitely a chronic disease that causes a lot of patients discomfort whenever they want to move. In some cases, it even limits their movement, and over time, it only gets worse. So for such an invention to be able to maintain the quality of life for those patients, this will definitely be very much appreciated by them. Now, the student has come up with the assistive exoskeleton for the upcoming Expo of 2021, and she's seeking to help old people, mostly those who are affected by arthritis, to regain their normal, human body functions. The products that she's working on, which is basically an exosuit, so it's a whole suit that attaches to your body, and it's connected with smart shoes that also help out with the movement. Both products actually imitate the motion of our muscles, so this will help provide a lot of support that is needed by people whose motion has been restricted due to this condition. Now, smart shoes and a smart suit are meant for addressing the early symptoms of the illness, which can definitely cut down the usual delay in the treatment of arthritis before it gets to the severe stage. The exoskeleton can help people who are already suffering from pain when the disease is already in advanced stages. So it's very interesting that this young teenager was able to take both ends of the spectrum into consideration, those with early stages and those with advanced stages. Now, this innovation follows the display of a similar wearable robot that was actually invented by Panasonic. Now, the robot can actually support the patients that are being, or suffering with this disease, but they can also help out nursing professionals who are constantly trying to carry up those patients, trying to reduce the pressure on their spine as they are receiving the treatment. Tech in healthcare has definitely played a very crucial role during the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's stretching beyond that. The medical community in the country has continued to display all the capabilities in trying to fuse tech with solving different issues, whether it was in managing patients, scheduling teleconsultations, scheduling different medications to be received to these patients, but also in helping them maneuver in their day-to-day activities. Nowadays, receiving a certain, diagnosis of a chronic illness or a chronic disease does not necessarily mean that your life is over. Sometimes it only means that your life is just beginning. And this is what we've been seeing with different innovations that have been entering the market. Let us know your thoughts. Our text lines are open 4215 do it a lot, or slide into our DMs at Pulse 95 Radio. What do you think of this wearable exoskeleton? And what is one invention that you wish you could pitch into the market if you were to go ahead and create one? Coming up on the show, we still have lots and lots in store for you all. We're going to be talking about Apple because there are a lot of analysts that are speculating that they are going to be soon launching 2 MacBook Pro laptops with a new design and a magnetic charger.
Gadget of the day.
New tech you might want to play with.
Pulse 95.
Analysts do love to find out what Apple is up to, especially because Apple does love its secrecy, and a lot of people tend to be very excited about what's coming up for Apple's gadgets. But today we're talking about an analyst named Michio Ku, who actually thought of looking up what is going on with Apple and MacBooks. It's definitely a different area of analysis in comparison to the typical. A lot of people go after the iPhones, the Apple Watches, but never the MacBook Pros. Now, his latest analysis showcases that Apple is planning to launch 2 MacBook Pro laptops with a brand new design. And hear this, ladies and gentlemen, Apple is working on a magnetic charger for its MacBook computers. Now, this is definitely going to be a completely different way of charging your laptop. Now, this year, especially back in 2020, there wasn't much of a change to the typical Apple MacBook design. But in the upcoming years, Apple is definitely considering to change that up. So even though last year it launched the 13-inch MacBook and the 16-inch MacBook, there is a lot of analysis that they're working on a 14 and a 16-inch screen. So instead of getting the 13-inch screen, you're getting a little bit of an upgrade, and then you have your typical 16-inch MacBook. Now, the new design will also mean that we have MagSafe charging ports coming up on the table. So these they used to appear back in the day for MacBook designs before Apple actually moved to the USB-C charging in recent years. People did like the magnetic charging. I personally loved it. It was just easier than plugging in the USB-C. and people really liked how the cord pops in and pops out pretty easily, but also having it be magnetic means less time spent on charging. However, there was one big downfall, which is the fact that the laptop charger was being damaged a lot faster. And the reason behind it is because someone can pull it out easily. So that means that, they're also damaging the charger a lot faster. But it's also reducing the risk on the laptop itself, because whenever the charging plug is pulled out, the whole laptop is not falling along with it. Now, Apple recently revived the MagSafe branding with the latest iPhone 12 model that also did feature charging it with a magnetic puck that actually attaches to the back of the phone. This was not the phone charger that comes with the iPhone 12. Just a mere reminder. The new iPhone 12s don't even come with a charger. However, people can go ahead and purchase that charger separately. The MacBook Pro has not changed, though, in form and in design for about 5 years now, and they do believe that the launch of the 2 new design MacBook Pros in the third quarter of this year will attract customers' attention, and it will definitely boost that replacement demand. Now, Apple is planning to also, these are all speculation by an analyst, but they are planning to get rid of the curved edges in the MacBook Pros. And I wouldn't be surprised about that, because they also did get rid of those curved edges in the iPhone 12. The iPhone 12 reminds me a lot of the older iPhone models. It's very sleek, but also pretty bulky in comparison to the curved edges that we used to see with older iPhones. So they're planning to do a very similar thing with their MacBook Pros. They want to make the edges look a bit more like the angled edges of the iPhone 12, the iPad Air, and the iPad Pro. But Apple is also planning to remove the touch bar that allows a lot of people to tap into shortcuts on a touchscreen that is found on the top of the keyboard. Now, for those of you who have not seen it, I can show you on our YouTube channel, Pulse 95 Radio. If you were to head there, you'll see the touchpad or a touch bar right around there. And you can actually adjust the audio, you can adjust the brightness, you can even minimize and move across tabs using this touch bar. But a lot of people have been saying that these touch bars are basically, whenever the laptop is breaking, the first thing that breaks is the touch bar. So this is one of the reasons why a lot of people have actually appreciated not having it on the market. And they are definitely complaining of constantly having to replace the laptop, because that's the first thing that gets damaged. However, I do really enjoy having that touch bar. I used to have the older version of the MacBook Pro that was, it was launched back in 2015, and it did not come with a touch bar. And let me tell you, it was just not as efficient. So I'm really sad that they want to remove the touch bar. Another thing that Apple is also going to be including in its computers is their brand new M1 chip that older laptops have also had it now. So older. We're talking about the 2020 versions, but since we're in 2021, that means it's a little bit older. So the 2020 MacBook Pros that were launched after the iPhone 12 was launched did include the new M1 chip that basically marked the end of Apple's collaboration with Intel. However, they still look the same. So the brand new laptops that are going to be coming out in the third quarter of 2021 will also have these M1 chips that people say are much faster, much more efficient, reduce the overheating of the computer itself. So we'll definitely have time to tell if that's true. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about Apple changing up the design of the MacBook Pro? They are planning on a lot more differences in the new MacBooks so that people don't just get bored of the same old design. But I personally feel like if it works, why change it, I don't mind them changing the curved edges into, more angled ones. I liked it on the iPhone 12. However, a lot of people may just revert back to the old design. Saddest thing, though, is them planning to remove the touch bar on the MacBook Pro. But at the end of the day, these are all speculations by analysts that love to follow up on Apple's latest designs. Let us know your thoughts. Our text lines are open, 4215, do it to Salat, or send into our DMs at Pulse 95 Radio. Coming up, we're talking all about the car industry, because Mercedes is actually revealing a giant 56-inch AI-enabled hyperscreen for their upcoming electric cars. And let me tell you, this screen is not just amazing for the driver, but also for all the passengers in the car. To find out more about it, make sure you keep Pulse 95 locked, because we'll be right back.
Check this out. Check this out. Pulse 95.
Isn't it crazy crazy how mobility has just completely transformed over the past few years. Back in the day, people would ride in a train or ride in a metro or ride in a car just to get from point A to point B. But nowadays, people ride for the experience. You know, you don't just want to get transported from one area to the other. You actually want to get to enjoy that experience, and people are actually competing between two things: speed and entertainment. So which mobility tool can take you from point A to point B in the fastest time possible, but also in the most entertaining way ever? And today we're actually with our filmmaker, Gabby, at the Sharjah Research, Technology and Innovation Park, exploring their SkyPods. And let me tell you, that mobility will be life-changing. Just looking at it, they're basically hanging pods from a track that can go up to the speed of 150 kilometers per hour. They can transport humans, but they can also transport cargo. But away from hanging cars, let's talk about what Mercedes is doing in the world of transportation and mobility, because they have recently revealed a 56-inch AI-enabled hyperscreen for their upcoming electric car. Now, let me tell you, this hyperscreen, it is gigantic. It stretches from one door to the other. It puts CarPlay to the side. It puts, your typical navigation system to the other side, because it is huge and it can definitely provide everything a driver and passengers would need. Now, the hyperscreen is circulated by Mercedes as the biggest screen ever that was ever built in Mercedes-Benz. However, in reality, it's actually 3 distinctly separate high-end displays. So the displays are actually covered by a single curving piece of glass that makes it seem like it's one screen, but in reality, it is 3 separate screens that are appearing to float in the cabin. Let me tell you these displays and what they can do. They're able to communicate not only with us as users, but also with each other. So they're seamlessly operating. You don't have to, click on one screen and then switch to the other. No, they know exactly what you're clicking at, and one screen will copy exactly what the other screen is doing. But they're also there for those who are sitting in the rear seats. So in the passenger seats, they're also getting the entertainment, because this is a multi-seat entertainment screen. So it will provide drivers and passengers access to their phones, charging information, entertainment information. No need for Google Maps, because this screen can also lead you to your destination. It gives you a seat massage, and there are different settings to adjust that. You can access your social media on those screens, so you don't even need to touch your phone. And packed beneath that touch screen is actually 12 sensors that can give you haptic feedback during operation. Haptic feedback basically means that, let's say, the good old video games, whenever you're playing them, or the VR sets, they will shake sometimes, they will vibrate to signal certain things. And this is exactly what happens with this car. So a certain movement, like let's say pressing a physical button, may cause the car to vibrate. And when your finger touches the screen, this will assure you that your input was received. Now, we've seen this technology implemented by a number of other car brands already. It's not the first car that has ever had a big touch screen, but it's definitely the most interesting one out of them all. Now, what's interesting about it as well is that it has other functions that every user can personalize according to what fits them best. And the good news for the front seat passenger is that their display out of the 3 is actually the largest. The co-driver display, so that's the person sitting right next to you, the display of the co-driver can even allow them to help the driver with navigation. So this is great for anyone who's planning to ride with me in a car, because everyone who's ever ridden with me in a car knows that I'm not the best at navigation. So the co-driver display can actually allow passengers to help out with the navigation. They can control music playback. They can even look at the vehicle information and alert the driver if they did not pay attention to a certain detail. I want to hear from all of you. What are your thoughts on this car, and would you actually want to go ahead and purchase it? Our text lines are open, 4215, do it this a lot, or slide into our DMs at Pulse 95 Radio. Future Talk is coming to an end. You can catch us again later, same time, same place tomorrow from 2 to 3 p.m.
If you liked this episode of Future Talk, drop a like and subscribe.
Pulse 95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.